there, right? So the idea that every man is responsible for the sperm, for the children his sperm creates, is already false off the rip, right? Women can go purchase some sperm and have a baby, and no man would be held responsible for that child because she chose for no man to be responsible for that child. Yes? Okay, let's take another scenario. A woman can have a child, raise it alone all her life, decide when the child is 17, she wants child support for the last 17 years, and pursue it and win. How would a decision like that be made in the best interests of a child, where someone might not even know that they have a child for 10, 12, 15 years because you didn't need the money then, huh? But now that we've decided that we're going to pursue him, all of a sudden he's become a person who's been neglectful for 15 or 16 or 17 years. So once again, it is based on the choice of the mother, if at all she wants this man present, and when she wants to include him in this kid's life, right? So I don't see that as being something that's in the best interests of the child or of family in any kind of way. It leaves the choice totally up to the woman. If you look at reproductive rights, okay, so we say men can decide whether or not to have sex. Absolutely. They can decide whether or not to wear a condom. Absolutely. But somehow, if a man decides to say, I don't know, believe a woman who says, I'm on the pill, I have an IUD, I'm on Depo-Provera, I'm taking this or I'm taking that. If he chooses to believe her, so now they had a discussion, right? They made the decision together that they didn't want children, except maybe she wasn't telling the truth. Where are his reproductive rights? Where are his reproductive rights? And would women like it if men started acting like they couldn't be trusted on that level? I think then everybody would be insulted. Everybody would be insulted. He doesn't believe me. I told him this and I told, right? Okay. So it means what? A woman doesn't have to depend on whether a man is telling the truth or not to protect herself from an unwanted pregnancy. A man, on the other hand, does. And it's naive to say, oh, just put on a condom. So should men who are married to their wives wear condoms because they don't want a kid and maybe their wife secretly does? Is that realistic? Should people in long-term committed monogamous relationships, what, they should start wearing condoms because a man can't be sure if the woman that he's with is telling the truth? Like, there's a clear disadvantage here, all right? So to pretend that the man has equal say in whether or not a baby is made is false, all right? It's just false. It's patently false. All right. So let's fast forward now. She's pregnant. All right. So if she decides that she doesn't want to have a baby, then no one is concerned about the best interests of the child. Yeah? It's only if she decides that there is to be a child whose best interests are important, at that point, will the child's best interests become important. But the person who makes that decision is the woman. It's not the man. All right, let's fast forward now. She decides that she wants to have a baby. All right. When the baby is born, so now we have a live child. And she decides, you know what? I want to opt out of parental responsibility. All she has to do is go to the nearest church, hospital, orphanage, social services agency, say, listen, I don't want to take care of a baby, and hand it over. And she will suffer no legal consequences, no criminal consequences. Nothing will happen to a woman who gives birth to a baby and then decides that she doesn't want it anymore. As long as she doesn't harm that child, right? We're not talking about abuse. As long as she doesn't abuse that kid in any way. If a woman who has a baby decides after the baby is born, she doesn't want the baby, no one will force her to keep it. No one will force her to be responsible for it. No one will force her to be financially responsible for it. No one will force her to send a check anywhere or to do any of that. She will be free at the moment she decides she does not want this child that she's had. She has the space to do that. Do men have that space? If a child is born and a man decides, I don't want a baby, can he do that without being the scum of the earth? Can he do that without being a criminal? No, he can't. Once again, if the woman decides that this child needs to have two parents, needs to have two responsible people, then she can make that happen. But if a man decides that that is the case, he cannot make that happen in either direction. He has zero options. There have been cases in the United States where children have been given up for adoption without their father's consent. Okay. So this idea that the forcing of child support, the arrangement of whatever visitation the woman decides on, however much she wants him to have, or however little she wants him to have, is about the best interests of the child. That's a lie. It's a lie. Because at the end of the day, if a woman decides she doesn't even want to tell a man he has a baby, there's no law that says she has to. There's no law in any state that says it's a crime to not tell a man that he has a baby. Right? So if a woman decides, you know what, I can raise this kid by myself, I don't need no man, my kid don't need no daddy, then all of a sudden the best interests of the child become that. The court will enforce nothing else. If she decides that the only role I want this child's father to have is one of an automatic teller, she can have that too. There's no law that speaks to the misuse or misapplication of child support, right? So ultimately, even how the money is spent, they don't care. As long as it's in the woman's hands, it's automatically in the best interests of the child. So once she is paid in the way she wants to be paid, the best interests of the child have been protected. What kind of retarded system is that?